Good morning. This is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan. He's a Corgi. We're here for an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. We had stuff going on last week, and I just never could do this. And this week, I was supposed to be helping online with a T-Touch class that's out of Maryland. That's not happening. Well, the class is, but I'm not involved. So I'm here this morning, and I've had a few client dogs over the last month that have come in with similar issues. So I think it's worth addressing that topic here. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And it's all stemming from leash pulling. Oh, it's Jim and James. They're taking a break on the cooking. So leash pulling. So I had two different dogs and others in the past, but one come here, 5-year-old boxer, very energetic, high energy dog. Boxers are in general. They would love it to live with a runner who does like 2 to 5 miles a day at least. Boxers need to move. And a lot of people that get them want couch potatoes, and that's a problem for the boxer. So when they do go walking, they often pull. This dog is still pulling and came here for a completely unrelated issue. Second dog came here, 8-year-old doodle of some types, and that dog pulled in puppyhood, doesn't pull anymore at all. Has not pulled probably in 4 of its 8 years. But on evaluation, both dogs had the same kind of problem that we see often in leash pullers, and that is problems in the patella. Now remember, the patella on the dog is back here in the back leg at the top of the leg. It's not in the knee in the front. So it's in the stifle of a horse, and that's where the knee is in a dog. And when they're pulling, they're leaning forward and pushing off with their quadriceps, which attach at the stifle at the patella, and push, 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 and they get really strong on the front half of their leg. Meanwhile, the back half of their leg, the hamstrings, which we all know from that joke, pull the hammy, those are the big muscles on the back of your leg that work in opposition to your quads on the front of your leg. They all stabilize the patella or the stifle. And this is common in horses and lots of small dogs because of the shallowness of the groove that the patella glides in. Small dogs are prone to that little skip to my loo. But these bigger kinds of dogs, I mean, both these dogs weighed like 50 pounds or something. And these bigger kinds of dogs, pulling can really put a strain on that kneecap and cause it to slip out of the groove, and that is extremely painful. And I have had dogs that have come here that have been sort of grouchy after that's happened to them, and they're coming to me for behavior problems, which can be traced back to a time when he fell down the stairs, was playing with a neighbor's puppy, did a split, and had a knee dislocation that the owner was not really aware of the extent. And so that has left the dog in pain and feeling grumpy. And if you start kind of limping, I mean, even if you're 60% of weight on one side and 40% on the other, which is a mild limp, most people wouldn't even notice, that's going to throw your spine out of alignment. And all those nerves that are affected by that twist in the spine are going to start to, show you problems in digestion and, maybe reproduction, and maybe problems in the hips, and maybe your dog will start to turn out. If you've got a performance dog, God willing, you'd notice that he's got a weight-bearing issue behind. But, you might notice that he can't turn both directions in agility or in rally or even just plain old obedience, that he'll go one way and not very well the other way. So these are the things that you might notice. But it's just so interesting to me that these patella problems are so common in leash pullers. Now, one of my most classic kind of leash pulling dog was being, he was a pit bull, maybe a pit mix, but that type of dog, big, strong looking dog with a lot of front end. And they are doing quite a few sports with these dogs now, including pulling you on your bicycle. And this person that had the dog loved that sport. And it was just the same as creating a leash pulling dog. And so even though the person was a strong biker and tried to keep up with the dog had tremendous patella problems and therefore unpredictable behavior, which is not true in most pits. Most are pretty relaxed dogs most of the time. But when they don't feel good, they are not so relaxed. And that's what was happening with this guy. Hence, he was being fostered and looking for a new home. which we resolved. He now lives with some hiker people. Now hiking is different. These people live in New Hampshire, I think, and they're walking up and down big hills, up and down. And when you're going downhill, the hamstrings have to really engage to stabilize the whole body. And so that combination of going up, which builds the quads, and coming down, which builds the hammies, actually is exactly what that dog needed to maintain his health in his hind end. And therefore, his personality has been very relaxed because he doesn't have pain in his knees anymore. So leash pulling can be a big problem. And the long and short of the message today is if your dog has been a chronic leash puller, like the one I saw who's 8, just for a year or two when they're learning the leash and how to be on the leash, that can manifest 6 years later with chronic problems. That area, especially this dog was red-haired, that area can stay inflamed. If you are feeding chicken to a red-haired dog, more inflammation going into that area. Dogs have Lyme disease, more inflammation in that area, and you can show up with a dog 6 years after he has been a leash puller with tremendous problems related to that issue. So it's so important if your dog has been a leash puller to address that. Getting a proper harness. I love the T-Touch harness. I highly recommend it. I have them on my website if people are looking for them. That is a good start because you can immediately stop the dog from pulling. And then getting some kind of follow-up body work of some kind. I mean, Reiki is not a direct body work for a physical thing like this, but if that's what you have in your area, then Reiki is good. But really, Tellington T-Touch work, dog massage, craniosacral work, any kind of, oh, I was embarrassed, hands-on body work can be so helpful to resolve these problems. And, you know, often in areas now we're seeing more and more vets that do chiropractic and acupuncture. If your dog's been a puller, getting a chiropractic adjustment and maybe 2 or 3 of those with some acupuncture to follow it up would also kind of release all the tension in the hind end that your dog has from pulling so that you can resolve this knee pain. And you can go on my YouTube channel, Conversations with a Corgi, and look up all of my many, like 30, 40 episodes on how to do Tellington T-Touch and even work on your dog's back end yourself. And doing some of the leg circles and things can help resolve any long-standing issues that are going on in the back leg. That older dog I saw, the owner was really surprised. I mean, he was coming here for a variety of other things not related to, you know, limping, hind end problems, sore, any kind of thing like that. But that was his primary issue in the body, which is why craniosacral work is so powerful, because we have this way of doing a technique called arcing where you can identify the area of the body where most of the restrictions are arcing around that area and coming from, and we can address that with a variety of techniques. So, I mean, I know there's very few craniosacral people that work with animals anywhere, and just because they're excellent with people doesn't mean they're going to know how to work with a dog or a horse or a cat. But just know, if your dog has been a puller, there's going to be issues back in this end. You may think it's going to be all in the chest and the shoulders and that they're pulling themselves along, but really there's a lot of locomotion from the hind end. So getting that looked at even years later, like if your dog's 12 now and you think back, oh yeah, he was a horrible puller till he was 3, worth getting that checked out before he's getting old and arthritic and, you know, having all these problems in his hind end. Now my mom's Schnauzer is a perfect example. The dog is 16 years old, very old for a standard Schnauzer. But that little Schnauzer was quite a puller for most of her younger years. And my mom's petite, and my mom knows how to pull the dog back and then relax the tension in the leash to teach the dog to be in her balance. But it was a constant struggle. Again, a very athletic, energetic kind of dog, a Schnauzer, very much like a boxer, needs, you know, somebody to run with them 2 to 5 miles a day or a big yard. And, you know, my mom walked this dog a lot, but it wasn't really enough to take out that energy she had, so she would leash pull. And we finally got her a cute little raspberry T-Touch harness, and the dog never pulled again. And that's probably not until the dog was 6 that we were able to get her into that harness. I didn't know my mom had a problem with this till I took the dog for a walk, and I was like, oh my God, she's breaking my hands. I had to do her in a balance leash the whole walk, which is a way of taking a regular leash and putting it between the dog's front legs while it's still attached to the collar, and then you hold it in 2 places. to get her in balance, hence the name. And so, and now poor Shotzi, she's a very old girl and she has tremendous arthritis in her hind end. And, you know, she's had a raw diet her whole life. She's had regular exercise, but I believe those early years of pulling put a real strain on her hind end. And, you know, she doesn't always keep up with her acupuncture and chiropractic visits. And I've worked on her probably only 4 times in her life. She doesn't really like to be worked on unless my mom is sitting with her on her lap, and my mom is very busy and doesn't always want to sit on the ground with her dog on her lap for an hour. So, but you know, it's interesting that she's so old and pretty healthy in many ways, not her mouth, but you know, this arthritis in her hind end is a big problem. So it behooves you, if your dog is even 12 and was a puller years ago, to get on top of this now so that, you know, you have more mobility in the hind end when your dog is old. Poor Shotzi fell and got stuck in the corner with slippery floor under her, and no one was home. And, you know, she just had many hours of panic scrambling to try to get up because she couldn't get her hind end under her. And this can happen to any of our dogs when they're old. So it's really important to try to keep things moving in the hind end when your dog is older. So leash pulling, big problem in the hind end as a result of that. Really important to get on top of that with your puppies. One of the most wonderful things to help a leash puller is to go for walks on a leash with a dog that doesn't pull, because they want to hang out and talk to each other and be friendly if they're friendly dogs. And that can help them slow down. I have, you know, Tristan never pulled at all when I had him with Comet. Well, he did a little bit, but Comet was so big, I attached the collars to each other and Comet kept him from pulling. And so he didn't become a puller until Comet was gone. And then of course I had all the tools to help him not be a puller. Right, Tristan? But his tendency used to be to pull, and so he doesn't pull anymore, and he hasn't for a long time. But you know, he gets his chiropractic adjustments, he gets his leg work, he has an exercise program to keep his little knees happy, and he's a Corgi, which tend to have happier knees than some other breeds. So leash pulling, big problem. Stay on top of it. Get some body work for your dog before he's too old and it starts to have long-term effects on his body. Glucosamine, also highly recommended. You can get that on my sister's website, drjudymorgan.com, to help your dog if he is having arthritis, or if you've got one of those little dogs like a Papillon or a Chihuahua or a Jack Russell with a little skip to my Lou in his gait because of the patella issues. Glucosamine really can help that. Tristan's handsome? Tristan, they said he's handsome. Yes, Tristan, we are trying to get a perfect go on our Elite Performer Trick Dog recording. Sadly, at the dog show we were at 2 weeks ago, the person recording missed the beginning of it. Did not, I think, really recognize what a big deal it was to get the whole performance on the tape. So, well, I'm so old, tape on the phone. So we have had reenactments probably 10 times. None of them has been as good as the first time he did it. And he is missing easy tricks like go in a circle. And I am hoping with the warm weather Thursday or Friday to get someone else to record us. We decided doing it in the park was better than in a yard because he thinks he's performing, and it really is supposed to be a performance. So hopefully we'll get that done because the AKC is having an Elite Performer Trick Dog contest, and they'll put the winners on their website and things, and it's a big deal, and there's prizes for breeds and you know, the whole putting together of the performance and the complicated and goodness of the tricks and all of that. So hopefully we'll get a good version because you're pretty cute in your fairyland. So thanks for joining us today for this episode of Conversations with a Corgi. I don't know when I'll be back, hopefully next Tuesday, if not sooner. So think about your dog's knees, and if they've been pullers, get that addressed before they're too old. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, everybody.